Very familiar day at Canadians practice when compared to last year.
Jeez.
Obviously, the news of, I would say, the Canadians' most promising player from the beginning of training camp to now, Kirby Dach, gone with a quote unquote significant injury. Um, I feel like I've seen this movie before. I don't know. It's hard to sort of separate this from the end of and the entirety of last season,
Yeah.
which was the reaction of everyone as soon as this news was announced. But there's a lot of things that this impacts for the Canadians. We don't know how long Kirby Dach will be out. Um,
It sounds like it sounded all a bit ominous, though. I
oh,
would,
for sure. Yeah.
it's. I think it's going to be a matter of months more than weeks. You know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. 6 to 8 weeks would technically be months more than weeks. But listen, it's going to be a long time.
Mhm.
So I don't. I think we're safe in assuming that. So I think there's a lot of things that are impacted here, and we thought we'd kind of bounce back and forth with what sort of the impacts could be, what we're going to see from this, and I guess. Well, why don't you get started? What do you think is one thing that not having Kirby Dach anymore is going to change significantly for this team?
You know what? Uh, More than any line combination or him not being there and he's replaced by some other guy, I think that the biggest impact is on Doc himself.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a guy who was, really soaring. He was spreading his wings, and he's been stopped in his tracks with this injury. And
Again.
Kent Hughes was again, yeah, and Kent Hughes was mentioning, not too long ago how individual development would be paramount this season, and that's really what he was looking for the most. And here's the situation when you got a guy who's really ready to pan out, and second game of the season gets injured, he's going to be gone for a long term, and it's the fact that he's going to suffer from a development point of view. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be any. It's too early to say that there's going to be any, remnants or any ill effects from that once he comes back. But my point is, it's just this is time, valuable time that he could be spending playing games and getting into his rhythm. Building on his confidence and his building on his strong preseason games, and all of the second half of last season. And now this has been stopped, clear cut and in game two. So to me, that's the thing that sucks the most, because it's really on a personal level. How about you?
Me, it's Yuri Slavkovsky. I really think I thought back to last season and the moment when Yuri Slavkovsky seemed to be getting it sometime around late November, early December. He that coincided with him playing with Sean Monahan as his center, and a few days later or a few games later, Sean Monahan was gone. He was out for the year. Now Kirby Dach's obviously not out for the year, but it just seems like this is a similar situation where Slavkovsky was looking really good, had an excellent training camp, looked good in the first two games, and has been tied at the hip with Dach throughout that time, and built a certain chemistry with him. And if you look back to last season and Yuri Slavkovsky's usage, one of the issues, not the only issue, but one of the issues was that he was never on a consistent line. He bounced up and down the lineup. He played fourth line, third line, second line. He was all over the place. And now it seemed like an intentional thing that Martin St. Louis was doing to create a duo with him and Dach. And he was responding well to it. Listen, just Monday, Martin St. Louis was talking about how he was happy with where Slavkovsky's going on the ice. He's getting touches. He's playing the game. All things that we even discussed. I mean, it's coming off opening night where he didn't do anything spectacular. He was just playing the game well.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that has to do with understanding the flow of an NHL hockey game, the rhythm of an NHL hockey game, and a lot of that comes from or is established by your centerman. Especially when you have a centerman as dynamic as Dach, someone who's as good in transition as he is, and someone who is able to secure possession as well as he does by winning back pucks, as Martin St. Louis mentioned today. And even Slavkovsky mentioned how well he possesses the puck. So it would be really unfortunate if everything you just said about Dach were to also apply to Slavkovsky, he has to relearn sort of some of the chemistry, and if he takes a bit of a minor step back, now I don't know if that will be the case. And the one thing I think that is good in this situation is that, to me, Alex Newhook has a lot of similar qualities to Kirby Dach. Listen, he's 5 inches shorter. He's roughly 20 pounds lighter. He shoots left as opposed to right for Dach. And there's a lot of differences, but in terms of ability to transition the puck, in terms of ability to play low in your zone and win pucks back, his defensive zone play is a strength of his. So let's hope the transition is not all that rough for Slavkovsky, that he can quickly establish some chemistry with Newhook down the middle. And let's hope that, for his sake, that those commonalities between the two players will allow that transition to be smoother for Slavkovsky. And I found it interesting when Martin St. Louis mentioned, what Newhook loses in size to Dach, he makes up for in speed, and then he quickly specified foot speed.
Yeah.
And I found that curious. Maybe that was just a subconscious thing, but there's a difference between being fast and playing fast, as we've often mentioned. And when St. Louis mentioned that Dach has an elite brain, which is a hell of a compliment for Martin St. Louis, we'll have to see where Newhook's brain is at, and if his ability to play fast can match Dach's speed, because foot speed for sure, Newhook has the edge, but we're gonna find out to what extent his ability, to how fast his brain is compared to Kirby Dach's.
Yeah. So we spoke in an earlier episode about Slavkovsky and how he could take example on Dach for, how Dach has come into his own physically and learned to get the edge in his game that he didn't necessarily have in Chicago. And in that sense, Slavkovsky is, had a great example in front of him. Probably Dach could become a better example for him, even though he's a center, than Josh Anderson, who's probably more limited in his skill set. That being said, I think that Slavkovsky can become his own player, and even though he's a second-year guy and he's got plenty to learn, I think that he's got enough resources of his own and enough skill that even if he was to play with Newhook or come back with Monahan at some point, the Canadiens, I mean, we're smiling a little bit nowadays when Martin St. Louis says, well, I got a lot of good options. But you know what? That's true. Down the middle, it's not the worst thing that could happen to the team because they have, losing Dach's, it's really unfortunate, for the reasons I explained earlier. But they have resources at center. They have other guys that are truly capable. And I think that Slavkovsky can continue to improve even if he's paired with Dach, with Newhook, with Monahan, or who knows, one day with Suzuki. So it's not all lost. But you're right. In the short term, there was true chemistry between the two of them, and so it'll be interesting to see how he'll reconnect or mesh with another sentiment now.